20 years ago, a seed was planted and cared for. We painstakingly nurtured it and weathered it against adversity until one day it blossomed and the fruits of our labor began to show. Today, millions have learned, shared, and been inspired by what our community has produced. We proudly served 21 million users from 204 countries in 2019. For our 85,000 technical articles, code samples, and videos, our 450,000 forum questions, and our highly anticipated conferences and events featuring keynote panels, live streams, and industry experts and influencers, we recognize and reward members for their dedication to the community. Through content contributions and mentorships, we ranked number 2,620 in the world with a reach of millions across our social media channels. Thanks to you, our global community of software and data developers grows stronger each day. For more information, visit us at csharpcorner.com.
Hello and good morning to another episode of Growth Mindset Show. My name is Mahesh Chan. I'm a founder of C Sharp Corner. This is Growth Mindset Show every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. Good evening if you're joining us from Asia and India. Good afternoon if you're joining us from Europe and mid part of this world. And good noon if you are in the US, North America, and around. Let's start it today. First of all, hopefully everybody's safe. Things are, I'm not sure really now, we're not really going to talk much about COVID anymore, but hopefully everybody's safe there. Today, it's a different topic. I picked a topic of copy and paste code. So this should be exciting. If you are involved in software development, I'm sure you are familiar with copy and paste code. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But before that, everybody, let's welcome everybody who's joining us. Let's talk about what this show is. This show is again for you. It's not for me. So even though each week we have a different topic, but you can ask any question in this show. Okay, you can ask any question related to career, related to jobs, community, anything you can ask about me personally, whatever you have questions, just feel free to ask. And then, we love comments. Post your comments if you dislike the show, what you are learning from it. If you're learning from it, let us know. If you think it's good for any of your friends, coworkers, or students, anybody just let them know about the show. Definitely, we highly recommend you share on social media what you're watching and if you like something. And let us know what you like, what you don't like, because if I don't have any feedback or comments, I really don't know if I'm doing a good job or not, right? If I don't know I'm doing a good job or bad job, I don't know how to improve and how to, come up with better ideas. So, all right, everybody, welcome to the show. I see Bhaskar is joining us. Ramjan Ali is joining us. Manish Raj Singh is joining us. All right, so definitely thank you, everybody, for joining us. Let's have some fun today. So we're going to talk about coding, copying coding. Just tell me, any of you, have you ever copied and pasted code in your life? Well, if we did a survey poll, if you have done or not, if you have copy paste, just let me know. Post your comments. Say yes, I do all the time, or I do often, or I do sometimes, right? And believe it or not, copying and pasting code may be very common, but some may not be legal or right. So we're going to talk about all the things and what are the best practices. Means if you're copying pasting, which we all do, what is the best way to do that, right? So when I need, let's say I need a code for message box in HTML or JavaScript, right? I don't know the syntax. I'm too old for, learning all those syntaxes. So I'll just, or I need to format a string, or like I need a regex, right? You need a expression for regular expression for say some date format. I don't remember. I'll just go on Google and say, C sharp reg sample. So I get the code and I copy it and I bring in my code. We all do that, don't we? Yes. We just did a Twitter poll on C Sharp Corner, and you won't believe that, Simon. You want to put it up there? About 73% of people said they copy and paste code. So one part is you search in a Google, you go to C Sharp Corner article or Stack Overflow discussion there, or Microsoft Docs, whatever. You go there, you look at the code snippet, you copy that and paste in a project. That's one way to copy and paste. Other ways, you go to GitHub, you download the GitHub library or project, bring in your code and start using it, right? Or you may have a NuGet package, right? There's so many code available out there. Visual Studio also have these snippets, right? So all those things are copying pretty much somebody else's code. This comes under copying pasting code, right? So that's what exactly today we are going to talk about. What are the best thing to do, best practices to do it, and what don't do it. Believe it or not, if you work for a large corporation, if you work for a large company, copying publicly available and pasting that code in a project may not be right. Your company may not even allow that. So you have to be very specific and make sure you talk to your company, see what is allowed, what is not allowed. Some companies do not allow. Okay, and we are also going to talk about licensing. So it looks like a lot of people here, most of people have already copied and pasted. Somebody has say I do sometimes, I do rarely, but yes. Somebody saying yes. So Ranjit says yes, copied. Some code are so better than what I have written, so sometimes only it's better than mine. That's good. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, if I find a code that's better than mine, and I would copy that. That's great. Yes, so John says yes, often, especially syntaxes. Yes, that's correct. So syntaxes we don't remember, right? Those days are gone when I remember all the syntax and I'm typing. It doesn't even make sense to type the whole thing, right? If I have a, let's say, sorting two integers, and why do I have to type all the code if it's already there? Believe it or not, in 2099, year 99, that was what, 22 years ago, when I started this writing code. I started with mindcracker.com website. With Mindcracker I started, and that was the exact reason I started the website, which C Sharp became C Sharp in 2000. The reason I started that, so I don't have to rewrite the code, and people who want to do same thing, they can use my code. That was the really starting point of C Sharp Corner, to share my code. And the reason what happened was, when I was writing a code, and I was in 99, I was in Downingtown, PA, not far from here. And I wrote a bunch of code. I wrote, in C++. I was working in Visual C++ at that time. So writing code in C++ was hard. First of all, there was not documentation. All you have to learn through the books, and also looking at the, header files. In syntaxes were there in header files, right? So there was no auto completion in the editor at that time. Okay, you have to type everything by hand. So it take you a lot of time to learn. I'm talking about 21 years back. It used to take a lot of time to learn the syntaxes and how to write a code. So I wrote a code in C++ and Visual C++ of copying files from one folder to other folder. And then I wrote the code, and I then forgot about it. And then I needed that same code again a month later, 2 months later, and I end up writing the code again. I was like, this does not make sense. That why I have to rewrite the code again, which I wrote it again. And then I start thinking that a lot of people are doing the same thing. So when you said, I'm going to put this on a website, so anybody wants this code, they can just download it. So that's how the whole C Sharp Corner really started. So a little bit background on that. So yeah, I see. Thank you for all those comments. I think Manish says Y2K. Kaleem Pasha says especially syntax for regex. Yes, always validating. This is important. Yeah, I always forget that. I can never remember that. Uh, so and yeah, syntaxes we always copy. So if you let's load the second screen. So today I'm going to talk about the best what do's and don'ts, means best practices of copying and pasting. So let's assume that we all copy and paste code. That's how it is, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with copying pasting. But one thing you have to be careful is that we can load second screen, Simon, and then ask your questions, guys. Again, this show is for you. So ask okay, yep. So you can ask any questions right here if something is not clear. I want to make sure I get this right. So when you copy and paste code, so if there are multiple ways we copy and paste code, right? One is we copy a syntaxes, or we copy and paste the sample from Microsoft documentation. If I'm working on C Sharp and I go to Microsoft Docs and I get that, I got code snippet, let's say copying a file, I can exactly take that and copy that and paste that in my project and use it. So that's okay. Nothing wrong with that, because that code is provided by Microsoft. And all these companies that provide samples, you can use exactly as it is. No problem with that. You will not get any trouble for that. So that's fine, number one. Number two, let's say if you search Google and you say you find an article or somebody's blog, and on that blog you find a code snippet of, let's say, regular expression of formatting a screen, date time or whatever, you take and copy that. So that's, you have to be very careful, right? Because you have to read the licensing of that copying. Just because somebody published a blog and put their code online does not mean that you can take that and pretty much use in your project. Okay. Even though you may not get in trouble, first of all, that person is not never probably going to go and look after who copied my code. Thousands of people copying that, but your company may have a problem with that. Each company, if it's a large corporation and they're building a product for their clients where they're making money from it, they want to make sure that you do not copy any code that does not have right licensing or ownership of it. So that's very important. So how do you copy and not even get in trouble? That's exactly what we are going to discuss here, right? So before we do that, that's third thing is you may just in Visual Studio, or you just go to look at the GitHub project, or you can have a NuGet package. You may have a library. If you are working in, say, Visual Studio Code, you may get one of the JavaScript libraries imported in your project, and you can start using it. So every time, let's start with number first here. The second one, I will go to the copyright and ownership. First point is, first may not be the best. So just because you search in Google and the first link came and you looked at it, that may not be the best code. So you have to really think about that. That there may be problem with Google right now is that when you search for something, hundreds of results come on the same topic, and there's hundreds of code samples will come, right? And it's not necessary that number one research results is the best option out there. So you have to look at all the options, at least first few of them, and compare and see the one you think is the best out there. So that's number one you have to check. So don't just assume that if it's a first result, just copy paste because I have no time. Like somehow we all don't have time in this world, right? Looks like we're always behind. Our whatever project manager is always asking, deadlines and so on and so forth. Is it done? So what we do is go quickly to Google, search, copy, paste. Hey, it's working, done, I'm done. Let's move to the next thing, right? But my recommendation is the spend little time before you do that. Spend little time. Or here's another thing. Sometimes the same code, same functionality probably have already written in your company, in your projects, other projects doing. So if there is somewhere documentation that these are the common library, this is common functionality, this is common code, this company is using it, that's probably even better way to do that. And sometimes we join these companies, we don't even ask what's out there. I know if there's one project I'm working on and there's remote developers working on different places, and they don't share. They don't ask what kind of code they need. Just go online, look around, download, and use whatever they want, right? So think about that a little bit before you do copy. Look at the first thing, copy and paste. Think about a little bit. Okay, is this the maybe there's already code being used already, right? That's proven and that's already as checked for security and all that. Does this make sense so far, guys? Let your comments keep coming. So if you agree, you disagree with me, what you do differently, anything you do differently, let me know. Share it. So definitely we want to make this as a discussion rather than me saying a lot of things. Number two is very important here. It's about copyrights and ownership. Okay, a lot of time you go to the website, you copy the code using your project and go on with life, right? But some specific websites, some licenses, they don't allow you to just copy their code. Some even ask you, give them the credit. Some ask you to put a text file or some kind of file. It has all the ownership of the code. Some even tell you clearly that you can use this code for learning purposes, but you cannot make this as you cannot use that in a commercial products or sell it or make money from it. So you have to be very careful when you are copying the code that is not from the known sources. Otherwise you may get in trouble. You don't really, I have not seen in last 25 years or 24 years of my development, I have not seen that, but I have seen some companies where they did code reviews, they look at the licensing, and some developers got in trouble because they copied the code where they clearly said in the license that you cannot sell and make money from my code. Okay, so you have to look at that. If you're using GitHub, or if there's a project on GitHub, look at the licensing. Most projects have clear licensing. Are they MIT license? Are they what kind of license it is? And if you're not sure about that copyright license, and look at the details. What is allowed, what is not allowed. But if you're working on your fun project, side project for learning purposes, all open source are fine. The only challenge comes is when you are using in commercial applications or you're building a product, you're going to sell it to customers and make money from it. That's where you have to be careful with that. Is that clear to everybody? Just feel free to ask me more questions. Make sure I'm clear on that. Actually, there is a video. I had a guest, Alan O'Neill, on my show, and Alan's background is technical. He's an architect, he's CTO, now he's a CEO, but he also have a legal background. He did a law on software development. So he had very good points in that video where he talked about, what to do, what not to do legally. So, all right. So hopefully so far so good. Hopefully you guys learning something, what to copy, what not to copy. Let's look at number 3 point. Number 3 is check versions and dates. So when you go to a Google, and I've seen this in my project, I'm talking about what I've seen in real life. When you search for a Google, let's just say, just formatting of a date time. There can be an article written 10 years ago. There can be an article written, last month. There can be a code written in version C# version 1.0. There can be an article written using C# version 9.0. The code can be very different. Okay. If you look at C# 9.0 and you look at the string formatting, it's totally different than C# 1.0. And not only 9.0 is a faster, but it's also very smaller portion. If you compare the code size, this is very small. So you have to look at that when you are reading an article or even a Microsoft documentation. Is that a .NET 1.0 or is it 5.0? What is the date? If you're reading a blog, make sure it's not 20 years to 10 years old. Trust me, I've seen code. When I search something in Google, my article comes, which code I wrote, like in ADO.NET code I wrote in 2001, which is useless now. So you cannot just copy. I have a lot of code and I just didn't have in time to go and update my articles because I have thousands of articles I wrote throughout my life, literally thousands of articles, thousands of code samples and applications I've written. I used to share all my projects I wrote in 2001. And when I look at that code now, it's like, wow, did I write this code? That was so bad. That code was so bad. You have no idea. So you cannot just, let me repeat, you cannot just go to Google and search the first thing and copy, and if it works and like, oh, I'm good to go. You have to, it's very important to check, is this code you're copying matches the version of programming language I'm using in my project. Okay. So there's a question also, is what are the licensing do we have? What an MIT always seen but didn't actually dig deep into. Yeah. So there is a licensing itself is a big topic, but if it's a MIT license, it's pretty good. You can copy for any purposes. You can copy and use that code. But there's different licensing. I think the online document, maybe I will search and share on social media, where a document talks about different licensing and restrictions. Some licensing allows you to use copy the code project in your projects, and some will allow you to sell, make money from it. Some allow you to sell, make money, but give them a credit. Some allow you to use for learning purposes only. So yeah, I will do some research on that, and maybe I'm going to write an article on the same topic. Actually, I started writing last night, and on that article, I will share all different licensing and what are their restrictions and all those details, legal details. Good question, though, Ranjit. Thank you so much for joining this today's show. Hopefully, you're learning today. So let's get back to our number 4, right? This is again very important. Check author's credibility. What does that mean? There are so many young guys, they write code, students, they're writing code. Nothing wrong with it. That's great for them. They learn it, they share it. That's awesome, beautiful. But sometimes when you are a young student, you may not even know how to write optimized code, which is normal. I look at my code when I started programming, and I look at my code now, it's like, wow, I wrote that code? Seriously? Yeah, but that's how it is. We all start from beginning at some point. We are a student at one point, and we start beginner code at one point, right? And just because you found that code, there's so many websites online you search, and those are the ones they will usually come at the top. Okay, so you have to look at who is the person who wrote that code. If more experienced the person is, chances are better the code is, because they have done this over and over and over again. So if you're looking for a code, look at the person author, is that person an MVP? Is how many years of experience that person has been writing code for? Has he used like a best practices in the code? So that's where you have to look at it. So again, I know I'm throwing a lot of work at you just for copying and pasting the code, but point is, if you follow these guidelines, your code will be really good. Your project will be really fast. You will have no problem running in the latest versions, right? So that's why these checks are really important. Again, if you're taking project number 5, is check for vulnerabilities and performance, right? Just because I wrote code, it does not mean my code is the best for performance. There's a better way to do it, probably. Again, you have to look at who wrote the code, when did they write that code? Is this really applicable to your latest version? Again, if you are working with .NET, .NET 6.0, same code will work. If you copy .NET 2.0 code, it will still work. There's nothing wrong with it. But in .NET 6.0, you probably can do the same thing in a better way. Less code, optimized code, and it'll be high performance. Make sense? So we got these 5 points, and then let's go to number 6 point. Number 6 point is you got to understand that code, what this code is doing. And there was a discussion on Twitter. I posted that if you copy and paste code, do you understand, rewrite, and optimize it? And some people said, no, I don't need to. But this is very important. If you're working in my team or any company where they review code and you copy and code exactly, I think they're not going to like it. So first thing you got to do is, when you take a copy code, understand what this code is exactly doing. And obviously, you will make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. But also, there are some sentences you don't even, you just ignore because it works. But you need to understand that if there is a class or some kind of enumeration or some object is used in that code, you gotta go check it out and look for that. Is that really the right thing to do? Or the better? Yeah, exactly. Kaleem just said there may be some obsolete method. I agree with that. There's so many classes out there, even in .NET. If you use old, there's obsolete methods, right? And some things they have changed in past few years, so you may have to think that way. So you have to understand that code, and without that, I would not even say move ahead. Just even though I don't care how aggressive deadlines you have, how behind you are in the project, you still have to understand it. Then you have to rewrite it. I would not recommend exactly copying and pasting. You have to rewrite in your own ways. You have to follow your own. Every company has guidelines, right? They have best practices. They have naming conventions. They have uh, exception handling. You have to then rewrite based on your own guidelines. You cannot just take exactly and paste it there. You take the whole thing, but at least change the names, method name, parameter names, comment the code if it's not commented. Everybody's comment is different, right? Everybody comments different. And then also, if you need, you can think of optimize it. For example, there may be a method. I'll give you a perfect example. Other day I was reviewing a class, and in that class there was a method that was returning an object. Object has 10 different properties, but it was only returning 3 properties. So these, in today's world in C#, you don't need that. You can use just your method, right? You can use parameter types and return just, if you're returning 2-3 values, you don't need to return the whole object as a class, but you can just return through all those things through method, which is much faster compared to the previous code. So that's why it's important to not only understand what your code is doing and then rewrite it, but then also optimize it. So those 3 things go together. And first thing is, start with understand when you're copying code, what is it really doing? And now you may think that, now I'm taking too much time, I'm not going to get this work done. But guess what? This is what makes you a better programmer. This is what makes you a better developer tomorrow. And you can even then explain to other people in your team, when you are like a senior person and somebody's working under you, some junior joins and say, can you explain me what this code is doing? So first of all, you should comment that. But then if somebody asks you, you can also explain that. And then you will also retain that more, right? So that's kind of, it all works together. It's not one or other. So you guys learning, you guys agree? And I think Bhaskar says, yes, rewriting is always recommended due to your naming convention, etc. Yep. That's a good point. Very good, valid point. But when you rewrite, there is a proven fact. There's a proven fact, and scientist agrees. If you rewrite, there's, once something is, you just read it. When you just read something, only you retain only 10% of that. But if you read and write about it and rewrite it, and especially in the code, you will retain about 60%. So that's a big difference, right? And if you teach somebody same thing, you retain about 90%. So you see the difference? You read something, 10%. So you read something, chances are you'll remember that after some time is only 10%. If you read and rewrite it, it's like a 60%. So it's a big difference, right? You'll know exactly what you're doing. And if you teach it to somebody, you retain 90%. That means you will probably never forget if you teach it to somebody. That's why a lot of people, they are teaching, they love teaching because they learn by themselves too. Sometimes I'm here speaking and I like, oh yeah, I didn't know that. That's especially in you rewrite, when I'm writing articles sometimes, then you have to really dig deep sometimes, like, wait, this is not right. So then you tell your brain to, hey, let's learn this thing, right? And this also then creates a good habit of learning. And here's the secret. You want to become smarter. You want to become, your brain, healthier brain. You want to create more neurons in your brain. harder work you give it to. Our brain is like our muscle, okay? Think of that. So you go, you want to get a big muscle. What do? Anybody? Can anybody tell me? You want to get a big muscle, right? You want to get six pack, or you want to get bicep, tricep, doesn't matter. What do? You have to go to gym, right? But you cannot go to gym and do same thing every day. Otherwise, your muscle will not grow, right? Because they get used to it. So if you want to keep growing, you have to give them a harder work. Like you have to lift more, or you have to run more. Whatever you do, you have to keep pushing to the next level. Our brain is same way. If you want to keep our brain more healthier, keep creating more neurons in it, make it like sharper, keep it that, you have to keep giving our brain harder and harder work, which it has to think about it. If you give the work, you don't have to think about it, then it becomes lazy, and that's where you don't grow, your brain doesn't grow. So point I'm making is, once you start doing that, you're going to understand the code, you're going to rewrite it, you're going to optimize it, you're going to teach it to other people, then all of a sudden your habits are changing, your brain is getting sharper. So if you go search YouTube or whatever today and say how to make my brain function better, sharper, or whatever, and intelligent, first thing you will learn is, every scientist will tell you that you need to train your mind to work harder. Okay, this is all, everything kind of comes together in the growth mindset series, right? And we're talking about growth mindset here. You'll say, what growth mindset has to anything to do with copying pasting code? It does. It has a lot of things to do with it. We just saw that, right? So, all right, two more things left in this, and this is good. This is almost done. It's like a short episode, and keep your questions ready. If you have any questions after that, we're just going to take those questions. So let's go to number 9. Number 9 is, you got to document that. It's very important. So if you're copying, pasting code, document that. If you're taking copying from some third party, you got to make sure where the source is, where it's come from. Now you'll say, why do I have to put the source? I'll give you an example. If you copy a JavaScript library somewhere in your code, and if you put a source there, 2 years later or 1 year later, new developer join, they will know that where this library come from. And if there is issue in that, they can go and look at if there's a newer version of that library that has fixed for that. So again, when you are writing a code, it's your responsibility not only just get the work done, but also make sure that developers coming after you, they also have an easier life, so they don't have to deal with complicated these understanding your code. If you don't comment, you don't follow naming conventions, you don't follow best practices, and you just write whatever code, it's hard to maintain. That code is hard to maintain. That code is hard to upgrade. So as a developers, it's our obligation, it is our duty to help people coming developers coming after us maintaining the same project, right? Does it make sense? Do you guys agree with that, disagree with that? Do you do that? How many of you do that? How many of you write good documentation while you're writing code? I see a lot of code, there's no documentation at all. Developers things like, our world is falling, they need to do this work, and they just start writing code, there's no comments, there's no documentation. I mean, in documentation, I'm not talking about the create a different file. I mean really documenting the code. That's what I mean here. And then last thing is test it. Yes, just because you copied paste code, just because you feel like it worked one time, you gotta still stress test. Make sure you test it all the way. For example, if you copied formatting a date time, don't just enter the date time exact format. It's because it will work. Try to break it. That's the important part. Try to break it. Try to enter ABCD in date format, see if it works. Try to enter different special characters. That's what will make you better, and that's what will make you not only a better coder, but also better software developer overall. End goal is that you're building the software, right? You want to make sure your software that goes out there and goes to public, to the clients, to the customers, it's better, right? That's the end goal. So once you understand the end goal, you will feel like, yes, these are really good things to do. So yeah, do you guys agree? So Kalim says he agrees with this. It happens. Best practice to maintain document is comments. Yes. So with that said, I think we are done with our top 10 most do's and don'ts copying and pasting code. Um, definitely copy paste. Definitely. That's why copy. Open source world is like that to help everybody's. Um, Okay, perfect. John says he's gonna put a link to Stack Overflow or article. So okay, with that we'll have more details on that. Yeah, but definitely copy and paste code. Nobody's saying don't do that because why reinvent the wheel? I agree. That's the reason I started C Sharp Corner years and years ago. Why redo the work, right? But make sure when you do that, you have to once you follow these are my personal do's and don'ts really. That's what I do when I'm copying pasting code. So if you follow these, I think you'll have a better code. End of the day, you'll have a better software. All right, so any other questions we have here? We can take some questions now. We have a lot of time today. This was a 37 minutes episode, which is, I mean, fine. It went fast. Ranjit says depends on the timeline. If they give time, as always, do, but 90% time they don't give us time. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That sometimes is a big challenge that the the project managers or owners, whoever managing, they don't understand the whole time required to do that. But I think these days in agile development, sometimes most of the time you are asked as a developer, you are asked how much time it will take. When you do that, make sure you add time for understanding the code, the reviewing the code, the commenting the code. You just try to and explain them like this is the reason it took me 3 hours, not 2 hours, because I did this. And once you explain them, I think everybody will understand. Everybody who's knowledgeable and who knows what they how to build better software, they will understand that. So that takes care. If you have any other questions, keep posting your questions. So I think this is what we've done with this part. Let's focus on one more thing. As you may know, this starting next week we have a big conference coming up. It's called Cloud Summit. It's going to be the largest. I think it's going to be the largest virtual conference ever for software developers, or at least for C Sharp and .NET, Microsoft. It's your website is called Azure Summit .live. Azure Summit .live. It already has, I think, about 150 speakers, some of the top experts in the industry. It's focused on Azure, Microsoft Azure. So if you want to learn anything or everything about Azure, I think everything is out there. It's 11 days, 10, 11 days straight learning, 10 days of learning. There's a lot of exciting stuff starting on September 13th. So you have a lot of topics, a lot of Microsoft MVPs speaking there. There's a lot of CTOs, CIOs, CEOs, big thought leaders. We have keynote coming from Magnus, and we have Anna, Alan, Vishwas, and a couple of other folks. They are very established people. These are the people you really want to learn from. So check that out. If you know anybody wants to learn Azure conference, let them know about this conference and share on social media. With that, I think with that we will close the show. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me this Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and hopefully I will see you next week and learn something new. I think next week I'm going to focus on impact of positivity on productivity. Yes, I need to come up with a better title. Impact of positivity on productivity. It means if you are positive mindset, if you have a positive thinking, how does it impact your productivity? And there's a scientific facts on. I'm already working on my research right now. So the way I work on these growth mindset shows, I'll tell you a little secret here, is that I come up with a problem, or I'm doing some discussions and I'm thinking about myself, and then I come up with that and I do research my own, and then I feel like, okay, this I need to share with everybody. That's how I bring on growth mindset. So sometimes if you don't know why I didn't say anything about the topic, because sometimes I don't even know what the next topic will be. So next week we're going to focus on positivity and impact on productivity. Until then, I will see you next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Really appreciate it. See you next week.